Chapter 10. Dreamscape 2. After the Mapo Tofu incident, Hito went directly to his room, thinking about the changes he was experiencing. He was looking at his hands with a complicated look. What is happening to me? He muttered to himself. 6. Honestly, he doesn't know, and thinking any further would only make his head hurt, as he doesn't have the necessary information to form a conclusion about what the hell is happening in his body. All he could do is wait, and hopefully, he'd figure out something. He wasn't going to lie, he was worried about the changes he was experiencing. He could only hope that it wasn't bad for him, or else. Hito closed his eyes and didn't finish that sentence. For now, he shouldn't think of anything he needed to calm down. And the perfect way to do it is to sleep. Hito opened his eyes, however, there was confusion on his face. That's because he was sure that he fell asleep. He was sure of it, so why did it feel like he just woke up? In a situation like this, he would panic. No, he should have panicked, but the thing is, he couldn't because it felt too natural for him to be here. It felt so familiar, but he couldn't point his fingers at it, nor he remembered doing such things. Currently, he was in a dark place with an infinite amount of bubbles the size of small marbles. 1. These bubbles were different from each other. Not only did they have different colors, but also, he could feel they operate in a different manner, as each of them was unique. Out of curiosity, he reached out to the nearest bubble. As he did, without a warning, his mind gained a massive amount of information that his brain isn't capable of taking in. But he did, and now his eyes widened along with his jaw dropping from his mouth. Impossible. 1. That was the first thing that he thought of, because the bubble he just touched wasn't just any bubble, but a reality containing a universe and countless galaxies. 1. And he even got the name of the universe. It was called Attack on Titan Universe, or simply Aodiverse. With that in mind, he suddenly woke up from his reality, with sweats all over his body. 5. What was that? A dream. Hito panicked, as he couldn't believe what he just experienced. He wanted to believe it was a dream, however, it was too vivid to be a dream, not to mention the information that he got from touching that universe. Although there are a lot of missing things from his memories, he was sure that he knew everything in the universe when he touched it. However, when he woke up, he could hardly recall any of it, except for a few things. He quickly stood up from his bed and went directly to the bathroom. He then splashed his face with cold water and looked in the mirror at his reflection. He realized with his eyes, we were all black anymore. There was a slight gold in the corner, though most people wouldn't be able to see it, but certainly, he did. 1. What is happening to me really? He bit his lips out of frustration. No one has this condition, that's for sure. Right now, all he could do is to wait and see. Letting out a massive sigh, he decided to cool himself with cold water from the tap. He took off his shirt and froze at the sight of his body. His reaction was justified, as he could see some lines in his stomach, meaning he was getting ABS. However, he never really worked out before, so it's impossible for him to gain this kind of muscle overnight. 6. Great. Another thing to add to the list of changes I am experiencing. Hito sarcastically spoke. 2. Too many things were happening in a short amount of time, and panicking again wouldn't do a thing in this situation. Bathing with cold water did make him calm down, thankfully. Still, the cold never bothered him the same way as before. It was like his body was now more immune to coldness. 3. Another thing to add to the list. Hito found himself in the kitchen. He woke up too early again this time, and he decided to cook. Without anything to do, he decided to keep his body busy, so that he would stop thinking about his condition. After a half hour of cooking, he finished making breakfast for everyone. Time passed. His sister finally went down to the kitchen with a look on her face. Again? Didn't I tell you that I'm the one who is going to cook? This is my place. My kitchen. Hitomi growled at him. 2. Whoa, easy there. I wasn't planning on replacing you. He gave her a strange smile. This wasn't really the first time he experienced this from his little sister. As far as he knew, she was territorial. 1. No one uses her kitchen without permission? You better be. So don't do this again without asking for permission, understand? Hitomi shouted at him. Crystal. 2. Good, now get out of my kitchen. 5. With that, he left the kitchen. He could never understand why she's like that. After that, he went to the dining table, putting the breakfast he cooked for everyone, and arranging his bento for later. As his whole family was having breakfast, suddenly his mother asked Lumen. Lu-chan, listen, me and my husband discussed about this a few days ago. He never saw his mother this serious before. Her seriousness could mean a lot of things, but he couldn't help but feel worried about Lumen, as he couldn't help but think that his parents would kick her out of the house. Which of course, wouldn't allow nor his sister, but he was sure that he'd get her support. However, he never expected his mother to say something like this. Do you want to go to school? And just like that, the invisible weight from his shoulders disappeared. His greatest fear didn't happen. He really thought his parents would kick her out of the house, but they didn't. Thank God. Lumen, however, was confused. School? You don't know what a school is? His mother said in surprise. No, I do, but why? Lumen didn't see the point of going to school. She would gain nothing from there. Why? Do you really need a reason to? Besides, it's better if you could interact with your peers. Isn't it boring here waiting for us to arrive? His mother spoke with an amused look. Lumen was silent for a moment, before answering. Is that what you want, Aunt? Lu-chan, didn't I tell you to call me Mom? Don't be a stranger. 1. Alright, Mom. He could see the happiest smile on his mother's face. He felt like they were being replaced by Lumen. 1. But he couldn't really blame his mother. After all, who wouldn't want a beautiful daughter? He certainly does, if he manages to date someone in the future if that's possible. 2. Good, so do you want to? His mother was waiting for her answer. Lumen hesitated for a moment, before saying, if that's what you want then, I will. Great. Now, I'm going to use my connections and favors for you to get a legal ID, and from now on you're officially adopted. Mama Tadano exclaimed happily. 4. Hearing that, Papa Tadano, Hito, and Hitomi who just arrived shifted their gaze toward Mama Tadano. 2. What? All three of them said the word at the same time. Hito didn't know what to say. He was speechless. How the hell did asking Lumen to go to school and accepting it has to do with adopting her? Even Lumen was surprised at this. On second thought, he didn't want to think too deeply about it. So he ends up thinking about Lumen's adoption. The more he thinks about it the more, he was okay with the idea. Having her as an adopted sister wasn't bad, and Hitomi was even excited about it. 2. Either way, his parents, mostly his mother, were fast to work on whatever she's going to do. Heck, she even called a lawyer. He honestly didn't know his parents were well connected. All this time he thought they were ordinary, but they weren't. Many things that he didn't know about were happening, and his life changed a lot. From the moment he met Lumen, it was as if she's the catalyst for everything. His normal life was changing, and it slowly became bizarre. 6. One more episode. As Hito arrived at school, he was greeted good morning by both of his friends Komi and Nishimiya, though Nishimiya was more open about greeting him though. Her smile was filled with purity. At this point, it might even be called a medicine, and that smile could make anyone's day, as she did with him. After communicating with them for a bit, their advisor, Shizuka, arrived while yawning, obviously tired, and didn't sleep enough. Good morning, class. Shizuka yawns lazily at them. Then someone from the class couldn't contain their curiosity and outright asked their teacher, Sensei, you didn't sleep enough yesterday didn't you? Thanks, for pointing out the obvious, captain. The classmate who asked couldn't help but blush in embarrassment, as his friends were laughing at his misfortune. So, aside from his obvious question, has anyone got a question from me? Shizuka looked around the classroom waiting for someone to ask. Then Yui raised her right arm. Yes, Uegahama-san. Sensei, what did you do last night? 2. Her question was exactly what the class was thinking of asking their advisor. Now everyone was curious about Shizuka's answer. Excellent question, Uegahama-san. Well, what happened yesterday is, I found this old anime. Out of curiosity I watched it and I got hooked. I kept watching and realized that it was already midnight. At that time I was supposed to sleep, but my treacherous mind told me one more episode, and so I did watch one more, but I couldn't stop myself from watching more episode, and in the end, I finished it all, but it was already 5 AM. So yes, I didn't get a single wink of sleep last night. Shizuka said with a big proud smile on her face, the kind of face that regretted nothing. 10. Everyone excluding Nishimiya couldn't help but sweat at her proud confession. Alright. Yui couldn't help but feel awkward after hearing her answer. She shouldn't have asked. Anyway, enough about me. I'm going to check your attendance, so be loud and clear when I mention your names. Hi. After taking our class attendance, we were fully expecting Shizuka to start teaching our class with her subject history, but unexpectedly she used it to rest, claiming that we should self-study. Hito and the rest of the class were having mixed feelings about this. Their teacher was unreliable, and he couldn't help but think, how did she become a teacher anyway? Anyway, since Shizuka was out, her class didn't follow her words of self-studying. Why the hell would they? Instead, they were communicating with their circle of friends to pass time. Hito did the same. Why wouldn't he? They were basically given an hour of free time. Times like this rarely happen. So he was going to savor it. Also, officially Nishimiya was now part of their friends circle. There's him, Komi, and Nishimiya. He was satisfied with his group, although, his eyes wandered around the classroom and saw Kawasaki-san, alone again without anyone to talk to. She was just burying her face in her arms. Honestly, she reminded him of himself back in middle school. He couldn't help but sympathize. He couldn't watch this farce any longer. He wants her to be part of his friend's circle. Before he approached her, he told Komi and Nishimiya that he's going to do something and will be back soon. They nodded at him in understanding, and with that he approached her direction and gently patted her shoulder, thus gaining her attention. Kawasaki glared at him. If it was anyone else it would have been intimidated by her looks. However, from what he knew of her, this was her natural frown. It looked like a glare, but it was not. It was just her frowning. She was a natural delinquent. Kawasaki had that dangerous aura about her. The way she wears her uniform doesn't help either. Hey, Kawasaki-san, do you want to join us? He asked her politely as he could. Heya. 1. Okay, she really sounds like a delinquent right now. He's pretty sure she doesn't mean any harm. Do you want to? He ignored her previous word. Kawasaki blinked and then scratched her cheeks with her forefinger. Oh okay, but join you in what? 3. That's a great question, but fortunately, he had an answer. Communicating. 2. That's it. Kawasaki looked at him deadpan. Of course, what else would we do? He asked. Kawasaki couldn't reply, as indeed there was very little that they could do. Okay, fine. Great, follow me. I'll introduce you to the rest of my friends. He was eager to introduce her to Komi and Nishimiya. He was sure that they'd get along, and he was indeed right. After he introduced her to them, at first Kawasaki felt odd because they were using a notebook to communicate. But after explaining their circumstances, she understood and accepted them for what they are. She didn't judge them, and that's one of the reasons they became close. The girls enjoyed communicating with each other very much. Even Kawasaki didn't expect to enjoy it. She was even smiling a bit. But too bad, they had to end their conversation as history class had already ended, as the next subject teacher arrived. However, Hiratsuka-sensei was still asleep. Her fellow teacher decided to wake her up, and after the teacher did, Hiratsuka-sensei woke up with a drool on her mouth. Berg. Hiratsuka-sensei looked confused for a moment before realizing that her subject was done. After that, Hiratsuka-sensei didn't even feel embarrassed when a coworker found her sleeping in class. What a thick skin she has. It was supposed to be the other way. 1. Time quickly went by. It was finally the last school subject for today's PE. They have to do a 50 meters sprint. The PE, the teacher says that the first place in each gender would get extra points. While the reward wasn't really that appealing, most of his classmates were motivated to be in the first place. Hito, on the other hand, wasn't even thinking of getting first place. He just wanted to do his best. The girls were first to compete in the 50 meters sprint. It wasn't anything special. However, the boys did enjoy watching the girls' bouncy mounds of flesh. Some of them were literally drooling at the sight. 2. Most girls in his class were after all biologically gifted. They pretty much won the genetic lottery. Or perhaps they were blessed by the breast goddess. 6. High school, where teenagers' hormones were at their peak. Hito wasn't even spared by this. It would be a lie if he didn't enjoy the sight. After the girls' 50 meters sprint was finished, the results were Yumiko Miura with a score of 7.9 seconds. She's pretty much first in the girls section. Komi Shauko with a score of 8.0 seconds. She almost got tied with Miura's score. It was such a close match. Kawasaki Saki with a score of 8.2. This was actually surprising, as she doesn't look like an athletic type, not to mention how heavy her breast is. But then again, you cannot judge the book by its cover. A/N. Actually you can. 3. Ozanenajimai with a score of 8.4. This creature is confusing. Whether it's a male or a female, it doesn't matter if its score is pretty much above average. 6. Nishimiya Shauko with a score of 8.7. While her score wasn't special, she did her best, that's all it matters. She was adorable, trying to outrun her peers. BTW. Uegahama Yui with a score of 10.9. She was slow due to the fact of how huge her tits were. Her tits were not only dragging her ability to run but also to think as well. All of the nutrients that were supposed to go into her brain went straight to her massive hunkers. 8. And the rest of the girls in Hito's classroom had pretty much the same score as Nishimiya or Uegahama. Now that the girls were finished, it was the boys' turn, and unlike the girls, this would be a fierce competition. Hito just knew it, as boys had more competitive spirits than girls. First place. Hito was getting ready for the 50 meters sprint. Before they started the PE, the teacher told them to warm up first so that they could avoid muscle cramps. After he did several exercises, he was barely feeling winded at all, which would certainly surprise him if he wasn't expecting the changes in his body. He felt that his stamina had significantly increased, so the teacher called the first batch of students to be ready. Since he was in the second batch, which is the last batch, by the way, he decided to watch the competition. This ought to be entertaining. 2. The first batch of runners was now on the mark. They were now waiting for the P.E teacher to fire the signal. After a few moments of silence, the fake gun was fired and the first batch of runners ran as fast as they possibly could. 1. Some girls in the class were cheering at the boys, making them more energetic. Hormones are a powerful weapon. Just to impress the girls, 4 out of 5 boys were now a bit faster than they were a second ago, although they couldn't catch up to the one who was in first place. The guy even did a Naruto run. It wasn't even the proper way of running, but he's still in first place. 4. Talent? Talent is real. 3. No one could deny it any longer. The one who did the Naruto run won first place. His finishing time was 7.4 seconds. Damn, Hito couldn't help but whistle. Even though he couldn't really remember the average of 50 meters sprint, he was sure that this record wasn't average. He couldn't help but think, is this guy an athlete? Looking at the guy, he could hear him shouting, don't fuck with me, I have the power of God and anime on my side. 7. Nope, let's assume that he's not an athlete because he couldn't see it in him. Now, it was his turn to compete in the 50 meters sprint, looking around to see his opponents. They were Keikaru Tobe, Hayama Hayato, and Ozanenajimai. Wait, what? Hito snapped his neck toward his childhood friend and thought, didn't he or she already compete for the girls' batch? What is it doing here? 7. Despite his confusion, he didn't allow himself to be distracted as the race was about to start. Even before the match started, most girls in his class were cheering for Hayato. They look like rabid BTS fan girls who haven't seen a boy in their entire life. Hayato, who was a nice guy, could only smile at them, making them cheer more loudly than before. Although outside Hayato was showing his Prince Charming smile, inside what he felt was different. Hito could tell that he disliked this kind of thing. He was even sick of them. And it made him confused. If he disliked this much attention, then why the hell would Hayato give them more reason to pay attention to him? 3. This person was complicated. That's what Hito decided. Ready. As Hito heard the PE teacher's voice, he shifted his attention toward the goal. At the moment it was his only focus to reaching the goal. And then he heard the gun's noise. Bang! Without hesitation, he dashed toward the goal. He didn't know how fast he was going, but he didn't care as there was only one thing that was on his mind. to reach the goal. From his perspective, it felt like an eternity, but in the outsider's eyes, it happened in a blink of an eye. Hito reached the goal after he did only then he let out a massive sigh. After a few moments, he only realized something was wrong, as the entire track field was silent. Then he shifted his gaze toward his classmates and friends. He saw their shocked faces. Even Hayama, Tobe, Najime were just standing in the starting line of the track field looking at him with various kinds of surprise. Suddenly their PE teacher broke the ice. 5.8 seconds, that's almost the world record. 1. After that loud voices were heard across the track field. Whoa, that's amazing. Did I hear it right? He almost reached the world record for 50 meters sprint. NOR. Way. 7. I can't believe my eyes, I witnessed a historical moment. Hito couldn't believe what just happened. He was also surprised like them. He knew that his stamina and overall physical ability increased due to the changes that he experienced. But he never thought his new physical ability would be this superhuman. He's basically top of the food chain in terms of speed. Without a surprise, their PA the teacher approached him with excitement and immediately asked him, "Young man, you should definitely join the track team. With your talent, you would definitely make it to the national." 1. Hito couldn't help but sweat at this man's eagerness. It was too much for him. "I'll think about it, sensei," he answered with a strained smile, thankfully for his tricked work, and didn't bother him anymore, but this solution is just temporary. However, the assault didn't stop there. While he might have managed to stop his PE teacher, he sure didn't with his classmates, and almost immediately he was surrounded by his classmates with excitement in their eyes. "That was cool. How'd you do?" 1. "Yeah, are there any tips you could give us?" 1. Now, he was swarmed by his eager classmates, and now he wasn't sure how to deal with this. After all, he never received this much attention before. Is this the daily life of a popular person? If so, I don't want it. Hito decided being popular is a massive pain in the ass. He was fine being normal. If that's even possible right now, but hey, a guy can dream, right? Because he showed excellence, he knew more people would pay more attention to him now than before. Thankfully it didn't take them long enough to calm down. Now he was given a space to breathe. That was a bad experience. After his classmates left him, now it was his friends that approached him, which was a relief. He'd rather have them surround him than his classmates who were barely his acquaintance. "Tadano-san, I didn't know you could run that fast." Kawasaki spoke in surprise. She never thought her friend had this kind of talent. "Kawasaki-san, you can call me Hito." What? Isn't that too intimate?" Kawasaki blushed a bit and muttered the last part quietly. However, Hito heard her and said, "If you want to, of course, I don't want to make you uncomfortable." You heard me. Well, fine, you can call me Saki." Kawasaki couldn't help but blush a little. She never really had a friend that she could call on a first-name basis. 5. Until now, that's it. "Alright then, Saki-san, as for your previous question, I didn't know I could even run that fast," Hito honestly answered. However, Kawasaki didn't buy it. She stared at him with a deadpan look. "Is that supposed to be a joke? If so, it's terrible." No, I was being honest here. I wasn't kidding when I said that." Hito couldn't help but sweat at her reply. He was being truthful there. "Really?" Kawasaki glared at him suspiciously. "Really? Stop looking at me with those judgmental eyes. It feels uncomfortable." "Hey, fine, I believe you." Kawasaki then smiled as she turned around. Hito might not have noticed her smile, but he could definitely feel her amusement, and that's how he realized it. Wait, was she playing a joke on me? He couldn't help but feel surprised. He didn't think she was even capable of joking. After all, she looked serious most of the time. After dealing with her, Hito was now communicating with his two other friends. They were also surprised by his hidden talent as they claimed it was, but definitely, it wasn't. He too was caught off guard. Also, they praised him for almost breaking the world record. And Hito wasn't too proud of it. After all, how could he be proud of it? He didn't even work that hard to achieve that kind of result. It only happened because of a mysterious means, which is his changes. Hito is fully expecting more. In the future, he has to be ready for whatever changes that he makes in the future, whether physical or mental. That Tadano person, I didn't think he had that talent. I mean, he looks plain and average to boot. Guess you can't really judge the book by its cover, huh? Miura said in amusement. "Oh, Tadano-kun, I have known him since childhood, even though I didn't know he was capable of doing that. How dare he hide this talent from his best friend?" Najime pouted in irritation. 2. "Hayato, what do you think?" Miura glanced at her, obviously not a crush. "He's amazing, quite different from his looks." Hayato smiled. 2. "So you don't mind if I add him to our group, right?" "I don't mind." "Oh, that's great. I've always wanted to talk to Tadano-kun all this time, but I've been quite busy," Najime cheerfully added. 1. "Then, it's decided I'm going to approach him." 2. And that's how Hito got the attention of the most popular kids in class. 2. Damsel in distress. After PE class ended and everyone went back to their respective household, Hito was now walking alone after he guided Nishimiya to the bus station. It became a daily thing at this point. On his way to the same convenience store from before, he saw a girl that was surrounded by thugs. He knew he was judging them based on their appearance, but they look like one and definitely act like one. So there is no reason for him to think that they aren't thugs because clearly, they do. They made the girl feel uncomfortable and nervous. He knew because he could feel the girl's emotions. And the thugs, he could feel their lust toward the girl, and it wasn't a pleasant sensation. Hito was a normal guy, which normally he wouldn't interfere with, and acted like he didn't see anything. 3. Because that's a normal thing to do, to act like a bystander. After all, he wasn't the knight with shining armor. He was weak. But, right now, he couldn't ignore this and act like nothing, because the girl they surrounded looked really familiar. Hito took a deep breath and approached them. Normally doing this action would make him nervous, but right now he felt strangely calm. Like he did this multiple times in the past, but he knew he didn't, but right now he was too occupied to notice. Hey, can't you guys see that you're making her uncomfortable? He said. Now, all 3 thugs along with the girl's attention were on him. The thugs were displeased by his interruption, while the girl's eyes were visibly brightened, not to mention the happiness and relief she felt when she noticed his presence. And that made him a bit confused, but he'll set it aside for later because for now, he has to get the girl away from these people. Huh? Who the fuck are you? One of the thugs said irritatedly. And why would I answer that? Anyway, let her go, she's clearly in discomfort. Hito's eyes noticed that one of the guys was touching the girl's hand. Shut up, loser. Hito couldn't help but roll his eyes and thought. Is that the best he could answer? I mean, he's clearly lacking in vocabulary. I will, but after you let her go. Hito added more seriousness to his tone. Why the fuck would I listen to fucking loser like you anyway? One of the thugs barked. First of all, you should listen because I am right. Second, why would you assume that I'm a loser? You don't know me. Hito replied with a slight mockingbird tone. 1. Huh? You think you're smart for talking like that? I never claimed that, it was just you assuming that. Fuck you. Guys, let's beat up this guy. And just like that the other 2 of the thugs nodded in an agreement. 1. Hito would normally be nervous in this situation, but right now he couldn't stop rolling his eyes and said. You're resorting to violence because you can't win at our argument. Look out. The girl he was trying to save shouted at him, as the fist was about to hit his face. By his instinct alone, not only he managed to avoid the incoming fist, but also counter it with a kick on the thug's left knee, making him incapable of standing. 2. But the fight didn't end yet, because there were still 2 enemies left. One of them tried to kick his ribs, but he quickly managed to catch the leg and used it to his advantage. He dragged the enemy's leg and threw it toward his friend, making both of the thugs fall into the dirty ground. Hito didn't hesitate to drag the girl, as he knew that his solution would be temporary. It won't be long before these thugs could stand up again. Thankfully the girl didn't resist him, so it made his job easier. Although she was strangely pleased by his action, he wondered why, but it wasn't the priority right now, so he decided not to think about it. If anyone is wondering why he didn't beat up the thugs till they were unconscious, simple, it wasn't his plan to beat them up in the first place, nor he was capable of beating them up. 3. Probably, his goal was simple, getting the girl out of their presence and beating them up wasn't part of it, because not only he wasn't sure if he could win, it would surely give him trouble in the future, he was sure of it. After a few minutes of running, they were now far away from the thugs. Hopefully, they wouldn't be able to follow them. Hito stared at the girl. She was panting very hard, while he barely felt winded at all. It was strange but not surprising. That's because he's starting to accept his changes. A full minute later, the girl finally adjusted her breathing to a normal one, while Hito sighs in relief seeing that there wasn't anyone chasing after them. Are you alright? He asked. The girl nodded as she looked at him with a happy smile. Yes, I'm fine, Tadano-san. Hito couldn't help but blink as she mentioned his family name. Huh? How did you know my name? The girl blinked in confusion for a bit before starting to giggle as she realized something. Oh, why you didn't recognize me, yet you saved me? I didn't know you were the hero type, Tadano-san. Hearing her, Hito couldn't help but scratch the back of his head and replied. I'm not the hero type, I just couldn't ignore it. Plus you look a bit familiar to me, and clearly you know me, so who are you if you don't mind answering? His answer only made her giggles louder, not to mention, she's happier. Then she answered. It's me, Saki Yashida, remember? The girl you met in the convenience store yesterday. 5. Hito's eyes widened as he realized it. No wonder she looked familiar in his mind. That's because she's the girl that he befriended yesterday at the convenience store. But you can't blame him either. Despite the familiarity that he felt with the girl, she's very different compared to her look yesterday. Without glasses, not to mention her makeup makes her unrecognizable. Because she looks like a different person entirely. She's beautiful, not to mock her previous look, but she's definitely in another league with her new look. How could anyone become this beautiful with just a little makeup and stuff? Damn, the power of makeover is terrifying. 1. Yashida-san, you look really different. Saki smiled teasingly. Different how so? She definitely knew what she was doing and Hito wasn't an idiot. He knew that she wanted him to vocalize her changes. With a slightly embarrassed tone. You look very beautiful compared to yesterday. He can't believe he said that without stuttering. Even without his ability to feel emotions, he could literally see her beaming with happiness. That smile of hers was the happiest smile he had ever seen so far. Hihi, am I? Saki blushed and smiled at his compliments. Yes, you are. I can't believe you changed this much and it's only been a day. He thought that changing his appearance would take weeks, or months even, but Saki did it in a single day. Is this her talent? Changing her appearance like it was nothing. Not everyone could pull something like this. Thanks, it was worth skipping class. Saki muttered the last sentence. You didn't go to your class today. Hito heard her despite muttering it. 1. Oh, you heard me of course, you did yet, I skipped class today, Saki admitted, however, she didn't regret it one bit. And mind asking why that is? Hito asked, wondering why she skipped class, especially when it's just the beginning of the school year. Well, sorry I can't tell you that. Saki guiltily replied. Oh, don't feel bad, it's nothing, you can ignore that question. Hito didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable. Thank you for understanding. Saki sighed in relief. No problem, so do you want me to leave or want me to accompany you to your house? Oh, please accompany me. Saki couldn't stop herself from raising her voice due to excitement. While Hito wasn't sure why she was feeling excited or happy that he's offering to accompany her. Maybe she's happy to walk with a friend? 2. Right, that must be it. Definitely, because there's no way she's in love with me or something. After all, it's only been a day, there's no way a person could fall in love that fast. Little did he know how wrong he was at that statement. Because right now, inside Saki's mind was squealing in delight that her crush was going to accompany her to her house. She skipped her class because she wanted to meet him. She waited at the convenience store for hours, hoping to meet him, and she did, although being ganged up by thugs wasn't part of her plan. However, she couldn't help but feel thankful for that event because it led to this. 8. Then, lead the way, Yashida-san. He looked at her waiting for her reply. Why yes, follow me, Saki said with an unconcealed smile. Our love changes things, for better and for worse. A light Yandere Saki Yashida? Better than being a cum dumpster? 19. Like 1,000 times. I have a serious announcement to make. From now on, I'll be updating frequently because I'm going to take writing a bit seriously now, not because of some dumb reason like I feel inspired or anything remotely similar. I'm writing due to the fact that I'm financially unstable, so it's basically do it or die for me. 7. It's going to be my main source of income now that I pretty much don't have a job. I'm going to update 1-2 chapters a day, though in Pet.Rayon it would be different, it would only be 2 chapters or more in daily update. Some if you might not take this seriously like, I'd be gone week later, but no, I'll take it seriously, even if I had to sacrifice my sleeping schedule for it. Anyway, if you want me to continue a fanfic that I didn't update for months, vote for it because I'm going to continue it based on popularity. 1. As sad as it is, for now I can write 2 fanfic stories simultaneously. 3 isn't possible for me yet, because not used on writing that much per day, so it would take time for me to get comfortable with writing more than 2. If you liked the story, please support me on Patreon, even if it's just for a month, I'd be really grateful. Saki's house. 1. While walking with Saki, Hito talked about personal things with her, so that they would pass time and get to know each other. From talking with Saki, Hito got to know things about her. For the most part, she's what you call a normal girl with a normal life, but with confidence issues. Because of that confidence issue of hers, she literally got no friends, aside from him. But honestly, with her looks, she could make friends left and right. While he couldn't really relate, however, he could understand. After all, her issue is pretty much the same as Komi-san. So he had an idea of helping her feel confident, and that's by complimenting her looks. It wasn't wrong for him to say that to her, especially when it's the truth, but for some weird reason, every time he compliments her, the gap between us shortens. Meaning, she was slowly getting closer and closer to him. He wasn't sure if it's intentional or if she did it unconsciously, but it felt off. Anyway, even if she is close enough to touch him, he wouldn't complain. After all, who wouldn't want a girl close to you? He's a perfectly healthy teenager, with no defects. There's no way he would be unhappy with this development. It didn't take them long to arrive at her house. Her family house was a bit smaller than his, but definitely decent. A typical Japanese common house. Hito looked at her and felt her disappointment as they arrived at her house, however her emotions brightened a second later. Tadano-san? Would you like to go inside? I mean you must be hungry and thirsty. I can prepare you snacks and drink. She said it a bit too loudly. 2. You don't have to. Hito then felt her nervousness spike. Please? It won't take long. Saki didn't even realize that she was holding his sleeves. Her expression was pitiful. Right now he was feeling guilty for literally no reason. 1. Oh, I guess I'll take your offer. Hito replied with a strained smile. He didn't think she'd be affected this much just by refusing. Then after hearing his answer, he could feel her relief, but after that it was happiness. Then please follow me, Saki said excitedly. She wasn't even trying to conceal them. You don't need to be so polite with me, just treat me casually, Hito said. Really? I can. Saki answered in surprise. Of course, why not? Then I will. 1. Just like that, it made Saki happy. So simple, yet to her it was special. Hito followed her inside, but before stepping in she exclaimed, Mom? Dad? I'm home. Oh, Saki-chan, welcome back. A female voice replied back. It's most likely her mother. As he got deeper inside her house, he finally met Saki's mother. He wasn't surprised to find out that she's beautiful. Somehow he realized this is where her looks came from. Like a mother, like a daughter indeed. Though he wondered about her father, he wondered about the things that she inherited from him. 2. As soon as her mother saw him, her eyes widened for a moment, before smiling knowingly as if she understood something. Hito could feel her elation and happiness. Then she said, I see. No wonder you asked me for makeover tips. So this is the reason he Saki's mom had a smug look on her face, and for some reason it made him shiver down to the spine. That smug expression told his instinct that it had several red flags that he must avoid. 1. Saki seemed to realize what her mother was indicating, which he didn't. She then blushed and exclaimed, "No, you got it wrong, mom. It's not what you think it is. Say what you want but mama won't believe you. I can't believe it's Saki-chan. The loner finally had a boyfriend and she took her home to introduce him to us? But too bad, Papa isn't home yet." Saki's mom let out a sigh as she mentioned her husband. 3. Hito couldn't help but be taken aback by her mother's claim of him being her boyfriend, but before he could deny it, Saki quickly dragged him out of embarrassment. "I'm going to my room. Don't follow us, okay?" However, it only made it worse as her mother smiled even more widely. 1. Oh my, how bold. Saki-chan doesn't forget to use protection, okay? It's too early for me to be a grandmother yet. 2. WW what? No, mom, we don't, arg. Screw you, mom. Saki couldn't take her mother's teasing anymore and she quickened her steps, dragging him to her room. Immediately after they arrived, Saki quickly closed the door with a massive blush on her face. Then she looked at him, with a face redder than a tomato, which in his opinion is adorable. Saki quickly bowed repeatedly at him. "I'm sorry, I didn't think she would tease me like that. I apologize for that unsightly display." No, it's fine," Hito said with an amused look. But no, it's really fine. In fact, I found it relatable that my parents would do something similar if I brought a girl home. I find it amusing more than anything. It was quite the experience." Hito could definitely imagine his parents doing similar, and if that happens, his reaction wouldn't be far off from Saki. 2. After all, it was your parents' job to make you feel embarrassed. Really? Then it's really fine? Why you not offended or anything? Hito couldn't help but raise his brow at that sentence. No, why would I be offended by something so trivial? Oh, so you aren't offended by it? Thank God. Saki let out a sigh of relief. "Calm down, Yashida-san, didn't I just tell you to treat me casually?" "Sorry, it's just a habit, because I don't know exactly how to treat a friend. I hadn't had one for a long time, you know," Saki admitted while fidgeting. 1. Oh, Hito's eyes widened for a moment, before nodding in understanding, because he had that exact problem a few days ago. He too was a loner like her. He didn't have a friend for a long time. "I understand you. I hadn't had friends for a long time, and just recently gained some." Saki stared at him in disbelief. "No way, you look like someone who has plenty of friends." Hito gave her an "are you kidding me" look. "No, seriously, you really thought of that?" "Yes. When I first met you, your presence literally screamed approachable nice guy," Saki replied very seriously. Ha 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 ha. Hito couldn't stop himself from laughing out loud. Him? Having that kind of aura? What a joke? If he did, he wouldn't have been friendless for years. He would be like Najimai, who literally could befriend anyone regardless of their circumstances. 3. Saki looked confused, as she couldn't understand what was so funny about her words. Sorry, it's just you read me wrong. If my presence is like you mentioned, I wouldn't have been friendless for years. He laughed because he found it ironic. Not knowing how to react to his answer, Saki pouted for a bit and whispered, "But I wasn't lying either." "What did you say?" Hito didn't hear her, as he was too busy controlling himself from not laughing again. "Nothing." Saki continued to pout. She did not like him laughing at her sincere words. Sorry, it's just amusing to me. Forgive me, okay?" Hito was still laughing a bit, and her pouting did not help one bit. It took a while for the both of them to calm down. And finally, Hito realized now that he's inside a girl's room. 1. At that moment, something snapped at me, something coursing through my Japanese veins. 8. Oh fuck. He wasn't mentally prepared for this. While it wasn't his first time being next to a girl in her room, his sister wasn't included. They are siblings, plus they share the same room. Now that he had gained awareness of his surroundings, he finally felt conscious about himself. God, he realized it smelled so nice here. Oh no, he just had perverted thoughts. Damn teenage hormones? 1. He blamed everything on his hormones. Thankfully, Saki didn't seem to notice the changes in him. Thanks for the small mercies. Oh, I forgot about the snacks and drinks. Moo, I blame mom for this. Saki quickly stood up from her mini table. Before she left, she told him, "Please wait a moment, it won't take long, I'll be right back." 2. Hito heard her slamming the table, and now he was completely alone in her room. Damn, I never thought I'd be in this situation. He chuckled nervously. Right now, he doesn't really know what to do, aside from looking around for the room. He couldn't contain his curiosity and started roaming around the room. So this is a girl's room, huh? It's girly just like I imagined it would be. He could see there's a lot of pink in this room. Although it's only secondary to his primary concern. As the entire room smelled like Saki's air conditioning shampoo, it smelled wonderful. He wondered what's the name of the shampoo product that she used. He definitely is interested in using them. 5. Saki's house too. Saki was walking toward the kitchen in fast-paced steps. After all, she didn't want to make him wait for long. It would be quite rude to him as her guest, not to mention she did tell him that it won't take long. With a determined look, she arrived at the kitchen, only to see her mom gazing at her with a smile that she hadn't seen for years. My, that was quick. I knew boys were fast in their first time, but to think it only took about a few minutes. I suppose he had a weak endurance then. Her mother said with a knowing look. Saki didn't understand her meaning at first, but after a few seconds of thinking about it, something inside her brain clicked, and immediately her face heated up like Christmas light. Mom? What nonsense are you spouting? We didn't have sex? Did you really think that we'd do it like an animal? She tilted her head and replied. You did not. 1. Of course. Why would you think we'd do it? Saki controlled her voice from shouting at her mom. Yes, after all, your father and I did exactly the same time, so I assumed you did. Saki's expression immediately turned into that of disgusted. She definitely didn't need to hear that information from her mother. Hearing about your parents' sex life feels disgusting? 1. I don't need to know that, Mom. Just because you did it with Dad the first time, it doesn't mean we'd follow your example. That's disappointing. I really thought you two did the deed. I even baked a cake with a "Congratulations, you've lost your virginity" icing in the middle of it. Saki's mom's disappointment was clear in her voice. Saki felt like she'd been hit in the gut. Her eyes widened in a cartoonish-like proportion. 1. What the F dash? When did you make the cake? It's only been a few minutes since we entered the room. It shouldn't even be possible scientifically. You can't make that size in a few minutes. It's a 3-layer cake and her mother made it in a mere few minutes? What kind of sorcery did she use? 1. Fufu, that's a family secret, young woman? I'll only teach you this family secret after you get married. Her mother winked at her. You know what? I don't want to deal with this. I'm going to make snacks and drinks for Tadano-san. I've made him wait long enough. Saki decided to ignore her mother and focus on her primary goal. Tadano-san? That's his family name, right? You two aren't at the first name basis stage yet. Her mom helpfully reminded her of the stage level of their relationship. Can't say she liked knowing that, while she only knew him for a single day, she felt like she knew him her whole life. Even in their first interaction, she immediately developed a crush with a few minutes of communication. And her affection for him only amplified. When she got to know him better, she could confidently say that she was in love with him. While she never felt love before, the intense sensation that she's feeling whenever she thinks about him is definitely not just liking him. She had a few crushes before, but they weren't as intense as this is. So what she's feeling is definitely love. There's no other explanation for it. What's there to explain? 1. She is quite aware that her feelings are making her irrational, but there's nothing she could do to make it stop. Anyway, back to the point, she'll definitely reach the first name basis stage soon. She'd make sure of it. Doesn't matter. Now if you excuse me, I have a snack and drink to make. Oh, you don't have to. I already made them a while ago. Saki's mom reached out the wooden tray behind her and passed it to Saki. There were freshly made cookies and a warm oolong tea in the tray that she's now holding. How did yo dash? Before she could finish the sentence, her mom pressed her lips with a forefinger. Shush, my dear, don't ask. You'll eventually learn about it when you grow up. Be patient. It's not time for you to know it. Her mom made it sound like it was some sort of ancient technique. There's no way, right? 3. Shrugging, she went toward her room along with the wooden tray filled with cookies and 2 cups of oolong tea. As she got inside, she saw him sitting in the exact same spot, and it made her feel a bit disappointed. She wouldn't really mind if he took out 1 or 2 of her panties and sniffed them. 6. She wouldn't be mad at all. Instead, she'd be elated, knowing that she had some healthy thoughts about her. But sadly, reality is often disappointing. 2. He didn't even look interested in her room at all, but supposedly she wasn't that interested after all. She's the same old boring girl with glasses even with the makeover. It's only her looks that changed, not her personality. Without a warning, he suddenly spoke with concern in his tone. Are you alright, Yoshida-san? You look disappointed. Was she that obvious? She couldn't help but be embarrassed to think he saw her disappointed look. Is it that obvious? Not really, I'm just really good at reading people's emotions, he said with certainty in his tone. 5. Wow, does he really have that ability? If others claim that they could read emotions, she naturally doubts them and won't believe them until they show her solid evidence. However, love was blind, so anything that came out of Hito's mouth is instantly the truth in her mind. That's really a cool ability. Thanks. He looked uncertain. Anyway, here's the snacks and drinks I promised. Saki put the tray on the table gently. She didn't want to accidentally spill the tea in front of her crush. Thank you very much. She didn't want to make a single bad impression on him. If that is even possible, which she understands clearly that it's not. Humans are flawed no matter how much perfect they may be. They make mistakes. But that is exactly what makes humans beautiful, because they are flawed creatures. Perfect is boring. 16. Hito ate the cookies that Saki brought from the kitchen. It definitely tasted good, but isn't as good as his mother's. No offense to Saki, but unlike her cookies, it doesn't have the nostalgic effect that his mother's cookies had. It didn't take him a full minute to finish everything, including the oolong tea. He had to admit it was refreshing. It's been a while since he tried oolong tea. After that, he didn't forget to thank her. Thanks for the cookies and oolong tea, Yoshida-san. They were delicious. Oh, you have to thank my mom for that since it wasn't exactly me who prepared them, Saki admitted with a sigh. Oh, then I should thank your mother then. No, it's fine, I can pass the message to her. Saki shook her head. Alright then, it's time for me to go because it's late. Hito stared at her window. The clouds were already turning black. Why yeah, Saki said as bit her lips. Hito could feel that she's disappointed by his departure. He could relate to her. After all, who would want a friend to leave? You know you can call me line. I'm always available at night. He reminded her. Saying that did the trick, as he could literally feel her mood lifting up. Why yes, I will call you as soon as possible. Saki answered happily. Then, see you later, Yoshida-san. Later. He left her house after that. So, what do you have to say for yourself, young man? His mother angrily scolded him. Hito was now kneeling on the floor with both knees. He knew that he went home late, but he definitely didn't think that it was past 7 p.m. already. Mom, I can explain. His mother stared at him doubtfully and decided to give him a chance. Go on, don't miss a single detail. Hito sighs, and starts explaining the event after the class ended. Including the thug fight. Well, it wasn't really a fight, but for a normal civilian like himself, it definitely is considered a fight. At first, his mother was worried when he mentioned fighting thugs, but went 180 degrees reversal when I mentioned saving Yoshida-san from the said thugs, and going home with her. He swore he saw Lumen's eyes twitch for a bit, who was in the corner silently listening. 11. But it must have been his imagination. After explaining everything, his mother nodded in understanding. I see, good work, my son, keep it up and I'd definitely get a future daughter-in-law. Mama Tadano already forgives him. Oh, wait, what do you mean daughter-in-law? However, his mother already left the kitchen while humming happily. Then his gaze shifts to Lumen. Do you understand what my mother meant? No, Lumen answered in a tone, colder than Antarctica itself. 4. What the? Hito was left alone kneeling on the ground. The system? Hito noticed that Lumen was unusually cold to him during dinner, and still, he couldn't get a proper reading of her emotions. It's chaotic, very chaotic, not to mention every time he tries to discern her emotions, he would get a mild headache for trying to do so. It's like there's some sort of barrier that stops him from discerning Lumen's real emotions. 1. Anyone he met so far, gave no resistance to his ability to read their emotions, but with Lumen, he just couldn't no matter how hard he forced himself. Because of that, the mystery regarding Lumen only went deeper. It's like her who is covered with a thick veil of mystery. A person he met in the streets along with a mini crater, a person who doesn't have any form of ID or even a trance of existence here on Earth. Along with a mysterious brother named Ether, who also doesn't have a trance. If it was before, he would no doubt laugh at himself for this far-fetched theory, but he he confirmed that there is another universe that existed. So his theory of Lumen coming from another reality isn't so unbelievable anymore. If this proved to be true, then everything would make sense. The mysterious why she appeared, her unusual outfit that clearly came from a fantasy-like world. And last but not least, her ability to block his emotion detection ability. After dinner, Lumen simply gave him the look for a second before leaving the living room. Hito was confused about why, not only that his sister gave him a disappointed look and said, "Tisk, tisk tisk," while shaking her head in disappointment. Then she left after she gave me the look, not for the first time, thinking, girls are truly confusing creatures. We men couldn't hope to comprehend what's in their heads, even with billions of supercomputers combined wouldn't be able to understand 1% of their brain, while we men do the bro wave and the bro smile, and we became friends and understand each other like we were brothers. 7. In his room, rather than thinking about the cold looks that Lumen is giving him and how he should act so that she could forgive whatever mistake he made, he didn't think about it at all. After all, what's the point of thinking about something that he didn't do? As far as he can remember, he did nothing morally wrong. So, he wasn't going to waste his time thinking about something so trivial as that. Currently, he's thinking about his previous dream. 1. A dreamscape where he could literally interact with different kinds of universe, or reality for that matter. Hito wondered if he'd dreamed something like that or remotely resembling that dreamscape of his. He tried to close his eyes, but before he could do so, his phone made a ding sound. He obviously didn't turn his alarm yet, so the only reason why it's dinging is that someone from line is trying to call him. And it's obvious who it is. After all, she did promise that she'd call him. He took his phone behind him, opened the app, and saw the call from Yoshida-san. Hito answered the call, and he heard Yoshida-san's soft voice. Hello, is this Tadano-san? He could hear the hesitation in her voice, so he decided to answer to reassure her that she wasn't calling the wrong person. It's me, Yoshida-san. I'm glad you called. Oh, I did, I promised after all. He could literally feel her relief after she confirmed that it was him that she was calling. Yeah, so what's up? Well, I don't. He could feel the shame in her voice alone. He couldn't help but laugh at that, not because he wasn't trying to mock her or anything, it's just that he found it amusing. She called him but doesn't know what to talk about. He could help her with that. He's going to talk to her about random things, and hopefully, she could keep up. Say, have you seen the news today? Oh, I did. He could hear the confusion in her voice. Well, there's that one funny clip at the end of the news. Oh, why yes, I saw that, it was funny and I couldn't help but laugh at it. He could feel her amusement, meaning she did know what he was talking about. Good, now it's up to him to keep the conversation up. Guess he'll be sleeping late tonight. He unknowingly fell asleep after an hour of communicating random topics with Yoshida-san. And now, he was back in the dreamscape that he experienced yesterday, though he doubts this is a dream because what he experienced yesterday wasn't just a mere dream to him. Can a dream give you a lot of experiences that you didn't remember doing? No, certainly not. The only reason why he's calling it dreamscape is that it's easier to understand it like that. Looking around, the familiar bubbles that he saw yesterday, Compared to yesterday, he saw the bubbles differently, as he realized that a single bubble contains a single reality. Each of these bubbles contains trillions if not, quadrillions of life. He had to be extra careful whenever he tries touching them. Who knows that he might accidentally pop one with his bare hands, making him a mass murderer by accident. 4. Anyway, aside from being careful, he couldn't stop his curiosity from trying to touch another bubble. He reached out to another bubble behind the Audioverse bubble. As soon as he touched it, he felt shocked in his arms. He quickly moved his hand away from the bubble that he was trying to touch. What the dash? What the hell was that? As if to answer his question. BZZZT. You don't have enough authority to access the DC verse. 4. Hito was dumbfounded as he saw the screen in front of him. Wha? Authority? What is this? Suddenly he felt really clueless right now. Everything felt more complicated than before. What authority? What access? More importantly, what is this screen in front of him? He didn't know of its existence until now. Hito couldn't help but scratch the back of his head. Now what should he do? If only he had some guide to understand what was going on. As if the screen read his thoughts. True name, _@ Tadano Hitohito, 1. Power level, 9C tier 6. Title, The Warden of Realities 1. Authority, can travel between realities with a power tier of high 5A or below. 2. Achievement point, 1000. Okay, I won't pretend that I understand this, but what the hell does achievement point do? Achievement point, a type of currency that could let you have whatever you want, power, money, fame, everything with the right number. 1. Hito blinked twice before saying, really? However, the screen didn't answer him. Deciding to ignore that, he spoke. Then, how do I get more achievement points? This time the screen answered him. Travel between realities, do something significant enough for the system to acknowledge the said achievement, whether it's killing an important person in that specific reality, slaving an entire race, destroying a world in that reality, or saving someone significant. It doesn't matter what as long as you cause a ripple in that reality. 4. That's pretty specific. Hito made a strange smile after reading that he could literally kill or enslave to get an achievement point. Which he won't do, by the way, as long as he's morally sane. There's no way he'd kill or enslave anyone without a reason. 1. He's the first to admit that he's not a good person, but he had what you call a conscience. With a sigh, he asked another thing. So, how do I use the achievement points? Just think of something you want, like powers, items, or people, which includes fictional or non-fictional, and with the right price you'd get them. However, the more outrageous it is, the more expensive it is. 1. Okay, that sounds pretty simple and handy. Think of something I want, a superpower. I've always wanted to have superpowers back when I was a child, or even my Chinabia phase back in middle school. Hito suddenly smiled bitterly as he got a reminder of his middle school days. It was an embarrassing and painful realization phase in his life, but as a result, he became quite mature, which he wasn't sure if he was thankful for. Now, he had to think of something good. He suddenly thought of the Naruto series. It would be cool to have those jutsu or even bloodline limits. 2. Not to mention those ocular-based bloodline limits, such as Byakugan or Sharingan. 5. However, he had a feeling that his achievement points wouldn't be enough. Instead of thinking of using his point to get random things that would probably be useless at the end of the day, he thought of the most sensible and logical thing to do with his current achievement points. I want a power that is useful in my present state and affordable with my current currency. 2. And just like that, he gained powers, yes, powers not singular but plural, using all of his achievement points. You have awakened your dormant magic core -101. You have gained knowledge and certain mastery of basic magecraft, which are gradation, air, hypnosis, and reinforcement, 703. You have gained the mystic eyes of third -203. As soon as he saw this, he felt like fire was burning inside him. He felt hot, not physically but more spiritually. It felt so weird. He gritted his teeth and endured the uncomfortable sensation of his dormant magic core awakening for the first time. However, it didn't end there. He also got a massive headache due to gaining the basic magecraft spell plus gaining a pair of mystic eyes. Overall, he had to endure a considerable amount of pain. It was already a miracle that he was still conscious. After the most gruesome several minutes of his life, the pain that he felt finally lessened significantly. Never. Never again? That experience was so weird and painful at the same time. Hito almost regretted gaining his new abilities. Well, almost, because he's pretty much aware of how useful the abilities that he got and how to use them. With this, he'd no longer be called normal. Oh, God, making this took a considerable amount of time, as I was reading about tiering system and Nasuverse information in the wiki to see if there's a mistake in my arrangements. 1. Damn, this research is worth it. I'm not really an expert on how Nasuverse works, but I'm pretty decent at it. I've watched Fate Zero, Fate Stay Night, Fate UBW, Fate Heaven Feel, and Fate Grand Order. 3. And some knowledge about Tsukahime and the Garden of Sinners. But then again, I could make a mistake, so any Nasuverse expert there, please do tell me something if I made a mistake. Oh, and by the way, his mystic eyes of third, as fancy as it sounds, it's only a third eye, which isn't anything special aside from seeing the supernatural, like ghosts, curses, and a bounded field. 16. Also, if you guys wonder why he have a magic core rather than the usual magic circuit, well, that's a secret too. But so far, one of the biggest clues I revealed. He'll eventually learn Prana Burst, soon. 3. The slave one Hito started flexing his arms up and down. He felt significantly strong with his magic core awakening. Not to mention it also amplified his other senses. It wasn't that hard to notice, the pain that he felt was worth it, at least. Though, he prefers if he didn't have to go through that uncomfortable yet painful experience again. He stared at his new status. True name, _@ Tadano Hitohito. 4. Power level, high 8C tier. Title, The Warden of Realities 1. Authority, can only travel between realities with a power tier of high 5A or below. Achievement point, 0. Skills, Gradation Air, Hypnosis, Reinforcement, Mystic Eyes of Third 1. Hito didn't know how the power level works, but he assumed the lower the number is the stronger he is in the eyes of the system. Anyway, he wanted to try using his new abilities, but he couldn't really use them here, nor did he have the patience to wait for his body to wake up in reality. Who knows how many hours he had to wait. Like a kid, he couldn't wait to try his new superpowers. No matter how simple they may be, it's still a superpower. Reinforcement, as simple as it is, this magecraft still makes you a superhuman, as it could strengthen the very limit of his body. However, despite its amazing application, this spell is dangerous, with just a simple mistake of adding too much prana could make his body explode. But thanks to the extra knowledge that he got from gaining the basic magecraft, he wouldn't have to worry about accidentally breaking his body, and he was thankful for that. Now, he didn't have to do trial and error, he could go crazy whether he wanted to or not. Anyway, back to his previous concern. Since he didn't want to wait for a few hours for his body to wake up, then his only choice is to travel between realities. He was also curious about traveling to another reality, so basically what he's doing is hitting two birds with one stone. Going to another world was an experience that he was about to do. It would be a lie to say he wasn't excited. He heard of isekai anime and novels, naturally due to the fact it's pretty popular in his country Japan, so it's a bit hard for him not to know about it. And now he's about to experience getting isekai'd. Hito asked, "How do I travel to reality?" And as expected, he received an answer from the screen. You have to touch one of the reality bubble and put your consciousness inside it. How do I put my consciousness inside then? Hito said in confusion. Close your eyes. 2. Oh, that's simple enough. Hito nodded. It wasn't too complicated. When he looks around him, there are an infinite amount of realities around him, unlike before he discovered the screen's existence. He could see some basic information in each reality bubble. SPC verse 14. Threat level, 10C tier to high 1 a tier 3. Access, unavailable. Hito doesn't know how powerful a 1 a tier is, but his instinct was screaming for him to avoid this reality. He shook his head and looked for another reality bubble. Danmachi verse. Threat level, 10C tier to high 5 a tier 6. Access, available. He could actually travel in this reality. It says available, however, he shouldn't be too hasty to pick. There's still more realities to pick from. Then he continues looking around. Demon Slayer verse 3. Threat level, 10C tier to 7 a tier 3. Access, available. He could go in this one too, and its threat level is significantly lower than the last. Overlord verse. Threat level, 10C tier to high 6 a tier 6. Access, available. Zero verse. Threat level, 10C tier to low 5B tier 7. Access, available. After looking around for a few minutes, he finally decided which reality he should travel to. AOD verse 4. Threat level, 10C tier to high 6B tier 5. Access, available. This was the first reality he touched and it had some value in him. Since it's the first reality bubble he touched, then why not travel from this reality first? 3. Simple man logic, no other explanation than that. 1. He once again touched the reality bubble, and this time, he didn't get a massive amount of information like before, to his relief and disappointment. 1. Hito finally closed his eyes and the system proceeded to put his consciousness into the AOD-verse bubble. 1. Accessing world travel. Checking. Access, confirmed. Authority, time and space. Access, unavailable. 2. Traveling to a random timeline. Access, confirmed. After that, Hito's consciousness went inside the reality bubble. However, because he doesn't have the authority of time and space, he couldn't control when or where would his consciousness arrive in that reality. Emir was running. She was running as fast as she could. She was desperate not to get caught by the hunters. 7. She was already tired from running miles, but she couldn't stop running aimlessly to survive because once she got caught she knew she would die. However, despite her best effort, the hunters managed to catch up to her, but it wasn't surprising as she's but a child, while the hunters that were chasing her were fully grown men. Arrow hit her shoulders, and she screamed in pain. Her vision before blurry as the arrow hit her, but she didn't fall. She didn't allow herself to, because once she did, the hunters would catch up to her and kill her for good. With nothing but her will to live, she continued running aimlessly in the forest with tears in her eyes. She ran and ran until she could no longer move her body because of blood loss and exhaustion. Emir fell into the dirty ground. She couldn't move her body anymore, she thought bitterly. She tried forcing herself to move, but she failed. Tears were now starting to fall out of her eyes. This was it, her final moment. It wouldn't be long after the hunters caught up to her. Why? Why is this happening to her? Her thoughts were immediately put to a stop as she suddenly heard footsteps coming closer. And it could only mean one thing. Her heart dropped. The hunters that were chasing her caught up. Despair began to cover her heart. Emir slowly lifted her head despite being scared of what would happen to her after. With blurry vision, she still managed to properly see who was in front of her, and to her surprise, it wasn't the hunters that were chasing to kill her. She knew that because of how different this unknown person dressed. From his expensive attire she assumed that he was a noble from somewhere. But this person wasn't what she was expecting. She had no idea what to do. Then suddenly the unknown stranger finally spoke. "W.O., are you alright?" Did she heard it correctly? He was concerned with her well-being? A lowly slave like her? Hang in there, kid. Without a warning, the unknown stranger suddenly carried her in his strong arms. He was now carrying her in a princess carry position. It feels warm to be carried by him. She couldn't stop herself from falling asleep. This must be what it feels like to be protected. 3. Hito didn't expect his first world travel experience was to save an injured girl that he found in the middle of the forest. 2. He didn't know what happened, but this girl needed a medical assistant fast. She was losing too much blood, and he needed something to block her wounds. But he needed to find a source of fresh water so that he could clean her blood and avoid infections after he covers her wound. Hito didn't dare to take the arrow out from her shoulder because it would make the girl's condition worse. As he was running around the forest to find a fresh source of water, he heard the sound of footsteps thanks to his enchanted senses. He started in the direction of the sound and saw men wearing medieval attire. They were also armed with bows. Making his eyes narrow, just by seeing their bows and arrows, he immediately realized that they were the culprit. What he didn't understand is, why were they chasing a girl and hunting her like she's some sort of animal? That made him angry. He wanted nothing but to kick their asses, maybe break a bone or two. However, tending the girl's wound is a priority, so he reinforced his legs and ran looking for a safe place for him and the girl to stay. It didn't take him long to find a suitable place. It was a very huge tree. It was thrice maybe even bigger than the other forest tree around. 5. One of the reasons why he found this suitable is because there was some sort of entrance beneath its trunk. He went inside the tree entrance while looking straight. However, he didn't notice the chasm filled with water beneath him. He only realized when both he and the girl he was carrying fell into the water. Hito tried to go up, but despite his efforts, he was only going down. Is this how I'm going to die? Drowning? Because of his musing, he didn't realize a strange spine-like alien creature had gone inside his and the girl's back. 7. After that, he couldn't quite remember what happened clearly. All he knew was that he felt huge and powerful. 2. Yep, by pure coincidence, he became a founding titan along with Emir, and his tier rating will change again. 6. Coincidence. 5. Anyway, you didn't expect it, didn't you? You thought I'd send him to the timeline where Eren, Misaka, and others who are relevant to the story existed? Well, too bad. There's one thing I dislike about most fanfic. It follows the original story plot. 13. What's the point of making the story if you're just going to follow the damn plot with extra sentences? 4. And because of Hito interfering there will be no Eren, no Misaka, and certainly no Levi. 5. Ta take you bitches. For those who don't know about the tier system here, I copied this in wiki so that you guys could understand. Tier 11, Infinitesimal. No jowl value available. This tier pertains to characters or objects that can create/destroy or affect the whole structure of a lower dimensional universe, or lower layers/levels of reality. Please note that existing as a drawing or being made of data/information is not to be ranked at this tier, as such beings are still three-dimensional, but on an incredibly small scale. This tier is broken into the following sub-tiers. 11C, Low Hypoverse Level. Characters or objects that demonstrate power equivalent to destroying/creating a 0D level construct of any size, or 3 levels of infinity/degrees of reality/fiction transcendence or similar beneath a 3D reality. This tier also includes characters who are vastly below this level, and all characters beneath this tier's requirements in any significant way will still be at this tier. 11B, Hypoverse Level. Characters or objects that demonstrate power equivalent to destroying/creating an existentially inferior 1D level construct of any size, or 2 levels of infinity/degrees of reality/fiction transcendence or similar beneath a 3D reality. 1. 11A, High Hypoverse Level. Characters or objects that demonstrate power equivalent to destroying/creating existentially inferior 2D level constructs of any size, or 1 level of infinity/degree of reality/fiction transcendence or similar beneath a 3D reality. Tier 10, Human. 10C, Below Average Human Level. Characters or objects capable of exerting force comparable to humans who are below the average norm in terms of strength, such as small children or infirm people, as well as smaller animals such as cats and dogs. 10B, Human Level. Characters or objects capable of exerting force comparable to that of regular humans, such as teenagers or unathletic adults. 10A, Athlete Level. Characters or objects capable of exerting force comparable to that of more athletic humans, such as trained fighters or generally physically fit individuals. Tier 9, Superhuman. 9C, Street Level. Characters or objects that stand at the threshold of human strength and capabilities, represented by Olympic-level athletes or rigorously trained martial artists, as well as larger animals. It is important to note that, despite being named street level, this tier has nothing to do with actually affecting an entire street, with the name being more of a reference to street fighters as portrayed in martial arts movies and the like. 9B, Wall Level. Characters or objects that can destroy or significantly damage extremely resistant materials such as stone, metal, or steel, as well as similarly resistant parts of constructions such as structural boulders and walls. 9a. Small building level. Characters or objects capable of destroying rooms or entire small constructions such as houses or more modest buildings. Tier 8. Urban. 8c. Building level. Characters or objects that can destroy medium-sized buildings and constructions, such as large factories or large complexes such as supermarkets. High 8c. Large building level. Characters or objects that can destroy large buildings such as skyscrapers. 8b. City block level. Characters or objects that can destroy urban city blocks or equivalent areas of space. 8a. Multi-city block level. Characters or objects that can destroy multiple urban city blocks or equivalent areas of space. Tier 7. Nuclear 3. Low 7c. Small town level. Characters or objects that can destroy a small town or settlement, or those who can easily harm characters with small town level durability. 7c. Town level. Characters or objects that can destroy a town, or those who can easily harm characters with town level durability. High 7c. Large town level. Characters or objects that can destroy a large town, or those who can easily harm characters with large town level durability. Low 7b. Small city level. Characters or objects that can destroy a small city, or those who can easily harm characters with small city level durability. 7b. City level. Characters or objects that can destroy a city, or those who can easily harm characters with city level durability. 7a. Mountain level. Characters or objects that can destroy a mountain, or those who can easily harm characters with mountain level durability. High 7a. Large mountain level. Characters or objects that can destroy a large mountain, or those who can easily harm characters with large mountain level durability. Tier 6. Tectonic 1. 6c. Island level. Characters or objects that can destroy an island, or those who can easily harm characters with island level durability. High 6c. Large island level. Characters or objects that can destroy a large island, or those who can easily harm characters with large island level durability. Low 6b. Small country level. Characters or objects that can destroy a small country, or those who can easily harm characters with small country level durability. 6b. Country level. Characters or objects that can destroy a country, or those who can easily harm characters with country level durability. High 6b. Large country level. Characters or objects that can destroy a large country, or those who can easily harm characters with large country level durability. 1. 6a. Continent level. Characters or objects that can destroy a continent or those who can easily harm characters with continent level durability. High 6a. Multi-continent level. Characters or objects that can destroy multiple continents or those who can easily harm characters with multi-continent level durability. Tier 5. Planetary. 5c. Moon level. Characters or objects that can destroy a moon, or an astrological object of similar proportion. Low 5b. Small planet level. Characters or objects that can destroy a small planet or those who can easily harm characters with small planet level durability. 5b. Planet level. Characters or objects that can create/destroy a planet. 5a. Large planet level. Characters or objects that can create/destroy large gas giants such as Jupiter and Saturn. 2. High 5a. Dwarf star level. Characters or objects that can create/destroy very small stars. Tier 4. Stellar 1. Low 4c. Small star level. Characters or objects that can create/destroy small stars. 4c. Star level. Characters or objects that can create/destroy a star. High 4c. Large star level. Characters or objects that can create/destroy a large star. 4b. Solar system level. Characters or objects that can create/destroy a solar system. 4a. Multi-solar system level. Characters or objects that can create/destroy multiple solar systems. Tier 3. Cosmic. This tier is broken into the following subtiers. 3c. Galaxy level. Characters or objects capable of creating and/or destroying a galaxy, when the space between celestial bodies is taken into account, as opposed to merely the matter encompassed by them. 3b. Multi-galaxy level. Characters or objects capable of creating and/or destroy multiple galaxies when the space between celestial objects is taken into account as well. 3a. Universe level. Characters or objects that can create or destroy all celestial bodies within a finite 3D space at least equivalent in size to the observable universe via an omnidirectional explosion that covers the entire space, alternately create or significantly affect a 3D universe or a pocket dimension of comparable size, which does not involve the destruction and/or creation of space-time. High 3a. High universe level. Characters or objects that demonstrate an infinite amount of energy on a 3D scale, such as creating or destroying infinite mass, or those who can affect an infinite 3D space. This extends to an infinite number of finite or infinite-sized 3D universes or pocket dimensions when not accounting for any higher dimensions or time. Large numbers of infinite 3D universes, unless causally closed from one another by a separate spacetime or existence, only count for a higher level of this tier. Being infinitely stronger than this level, unless uncountably so, does not qualify for any higher tier. Tier 2. Multiversal. Low 2c. Universe level plus. characters or objects that are capable of significantly affecting 1. Creating and / or destroying an area of space that is qualitatively larger than an infinitely sized 3-dimensional space. Common fictional examples of spaces representing such sizes are spacetime continuums, the entire past, present, and future of 3-dimensional space, of a universal scale. However, it can be more generally fulfilled by any 4-dimensional space that is either a. Equivalent to a large extra-dimensional space. That is, a higher dimensional bulk space which embeds lower dimensional ones, such as our universe, as subsets of itself, whose dimensions are not microscopic/compactified. B. Portrayed as completely transcending lower dimensional objects and spaces in the setting of a given work of fiction. 2c. Low multiverse level. Characters or objects that can significantly affect 2. Create and / or destroy small multiverses which can be comprised of several separate spacetime continuums ranging anywhere from 2 to 1,000, or equivalents. 2b. Multiverse level. Characters or objects that can significantly affect 2. Create and / or destroy larger multiverses which comprise from 1001 to any higher finite amount of separate spacetime continuums. 2a. Multiverse level plus. Characters or objects that are capable of significantly affecting 2. Creating and / or destroying a countably infinite number of spacetime continuums. Tier 1. Extra-dimensional. Characters or objects that can significantly affect spaces of qualitatively greater sizes than ordinary universal models and spaces, usually represented in fiction by higher levels or states of existence, or levels of infinity, as referred below, which trivialize everything below them into insignificance, normally by perceiving them as akin to fictional constructs or something infinitesimal. Low 1c, low complex multiverse level 2. Characters or objects that can affect, create, and / or destroy the entirety of spaces whose size corresponds to 1 to 2 higher levels of infinity greater than a standard universal model, low 2c structures, in plain English. In terms of dimensional scale, this can be equated to 5 and 6-dimensional real coordinate spaces, r⁻5 to r⁻6. 1c, complex multiverse level. Characters or objects that can universally affect, create, and / or destroy spaces whose size corresponds to 3 to 5 higher levels of infinity greater than a standard universal model. In terms of dimensional scale, this can be equated to 7 and 9-dimensional real coordinate spaces, r⁻7 to r⁻9. High 1c, high complex multiverse level. Characters or objects that can universally affect, create, and / or destroy spaces whose size corresponds to 6 to 7 higher levels of infinity greater than a standard universal model. In terms of dimensional scale, this can be equated to 10 and 11-dimensional real coordinate spaces, r⁻10 to r⁻11. 1b, hyperverse level. Characters or objects that can universally affect, create, and / or destroy spaces whose size corresponds from 8 to any higher finite number of levels of infinity above a standard universal model. In terms of dimensional size, this can be equated to 12-dimensional real coordinate spaces and up, r⁻12 and up. High 1b, high hyperverse level. Characters or objects that can universally affect, create, and / or destroy structures whose size is equivalent to a countably infinite number of qualitative sizes above a universal model, usually represented in fiction by endless hierarchies of layers of existence, each succeeding one completely trivializing the previous into insignificance, or more generally a space with countably infinite dimensions. 1a, transcendent 1. Characters or objects that functionally transcend the rest of the tiering system. These characters are completely transcendent to even those that have absolute power over a single infinite hierarchy of levels of infinity. Low 1a, low outerverse level. Characters or objects that can affect structures with a number of dimensions greater than the set of natural numbers, meaning in simple terms that the number of dimensions is all f1, an uncountably infinite number, assumed to be the cardinality of the real numbers themselves, and therefore that such objects fully exceed high 1b structures, which have only a countably infinite number of dimensions. More information on the concept is available on this page. Note that, if the high 1b structure in question is a hierarchy of levels of existence, then simply being at the top of such a hierarchy does not qualify a character for this tier without more context, and an additional layer added on top of the infinity th level of this hierarchy is likewise not enough. To qualify as an equivalent of the above description, they need to surpass the hierarchy as a whole, and not simply be on another level within it. 1a, outerverse level. Characters or objects that can affect structures with a number of dimensions equal to the cardinal f2, which in practical terms also equals a level that completely exceeds low 1a structures to the same degree that they exceed high 1b and below. This can be extrapolated to larger cardinal numbers as well, such as f3, f4, and so on, and works in much the same way as 1c and 1b in that regard. Characters that stand an infinite number of steps above baseline 1a are to have a plus modifier in their attack potency section, outerverse level plus. High 1a, high outerverse level. Characters or objects that can affect structures that are larger than what the logical framework defining 1a and below can allow, and as such exceed any possible number of levels contained in the previous tiers, including an infinite or uncountably infinite number. Practically speaking, this would be something completely unreachable to any 1a hierarchies. A concrete example of such a structure would be an inaccessible cardinal, which in simple terms is a number so large that it cannot be reached, accessed, by smaller numbers, and as such has to be assumed to exist in order to be made sense of or defined in a formal context, unlike the standard Aleph numbers, which can be straightforwardly put together using the building blocks of set theory. Even just the amount of infinite cardinals between the first inaccessible cardinal and Aleph 2, which defines 1a, is greater than cardinals such as Aleph 0, Aleph 1, Aleph 2, Aleph 3, etc., and even many Aleph numbers whose index is an infinite ordinal. More information on the concept is available on this page. Tier 0, Boundless. Characters or objects that can affect structures which completely exceed the logical foundations of high 1a, much like it exceeds the ones defining 1a and below, meaning that all possible levels of high 1a are exceeded, even an infinite or uncountably amount of such levels. This tier has no endpoint, and can be extended to any higher level just like the ones above. Being omnipotent or any similar reasoning is not nearly enough to reach this tier on its own, however, such statements can be used as supporting evidence in conjunction with more substantial information. 1. The Slave 2. Hito's eyes opened, and he saw the clear blue sky, clearer than his earth, so he knew that he was still in another world. He slowly stood up from the ground where he fell unconscious, then he looked around and saw the girl just a few feet away from him. She was unconscious, however. He noticed something particular. It's that her injuries along with the arrow in her right shoulder is nowhere to be seen. It was as if they weren't there, to begin with, but he knew that the wounds were there before but for some reason, they were gone completely. But how? Does this girl secretly have a healing superpower? No, that's not the case. If she does, she would have healed herself before he found her, so how? Wait. Didn't we just drown a while ago? So how did we land on the ground? Hito asked himself in confusion. Looking around once more, he realized something again. Isn't there a huge tree from where we stood? Where the heck was it? Realizing that, he felt like a lightning bolt hit his spine. 4. What the hell, this is creepy. He wondered if he went into a world with a horror genre in it. 2. Hito started shaking his head and decided to forget what he just thought a while ago. Just by recalling it, he felt chills from his skin. He is scaring himself. What an achievement. He carried the girl in a princess carry once more, then he felt the girl move and started snagging in his arm to feel more comfortable. Hito couldn't help but smile at that. Oh well, let's move away from here. Emir slowly opened her eyes. She never felt so comfortable waking up before. Maybe the last time she felt this comfortable is back when her parents are still alive. And just like that, her mood fell. Her eyes wandered around the place, and her eyes looked down and saw a piece of fabric that wasn't hers. This piece of fabric felt so comfortable. It was smoother than any fabric that she managed to touch in her entire life. No wonder she slept comfortably. It's because of this. Wait. Her eyes widened as she recalled something. She thought, aren't these the stranger's clothes? She was right. It was the stranger's clothes. For a second, panic assaulted her heart. As she had to give it back? And maybe he won't punish her if she gives it back to him herself? Emir was quick to assume that this must be a mistake. In her little mind, there's no way a noble like him would give her something so valuable as this piece of fabric. She tried to move, but she heard someone behind her say, "Oh, you're finally awake, that's great." 4. Emir shifts her gaze toward the person behind her. She saw him smile at her. 1. For a moment she stayed at her spot stunned. He's not mad at me? She checked again, and the nobleman wasn't angry at her for taking his clothes. Maybe, this man did put this piece of fabric to her body so that she could sleep more comfortably. But why? Why would this person give his expensive piece of fabric to a lowly slave like her? Wait, he's basically half naked now, and maybe he likes them young? She stopped her earlier musing as she heard him. Are you alright, kid? His voice was filled with concern for her well-being. She didn't hear him wrong. He was indeed concerned for her. Why was he trying to be nice to someone like her? And no, she should tell him that he shouldn't waste his concern over a slave like her. That's what she wanted to tell her. But why? Why can't she tell him that? Because she knew deep inside her, she wanted someone to feel concerned for her. She wanted someone to help her. The last time she experienced something like that was back when her parents are still alive, back when the Eldian invaded their tribe. Emir unknowingly cried. She couldn't stop her tears from falling out of her eyes. 1. Whoa, easy there, kid. I don't know what you went through, but let it out. It's okay to cry. The man suddenly embraced her. And that act of kindness only made her cry harder. He gently touches her back to comfort her. It took her a few minutes to calm down. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Before Emir could apologize, the man didn't let her finish and said, "It's fine, you don't have to apologize for anything, you did nothing wrong. So what's your name, kid? I can't call you kid forever, can't I?" He gave her a gentle smile. Different kinds of smiles that people usually give her. It was a refreshing experience. Emir hesitates for a moment before deciding to answer him. Why, Emir? Emir, so that's your name? It's a beautiful name. Just a simple praise from this stranger makes her happy. No one has ever told her that her name was beautiful. She felt warm and fuzzy inside. This was different from her usual emotions, which are empty and hollow. Tadano Hitohito, that's my name. However, you can call me Hito, he said with a warm smile. Hito, so that's his name. 3. She engraved his name from the bottom of her soul and heart, which she'll never forget. The person that saved her, the person that felt concerned for her, the person that respected her. Hito. She tested calling his name. Yes, Emir. The way he calls her name makes her happy because she is someone and not a thing. Not a slave. Just a free girl named Emir. I want to be free. That was the first sentence that she spoke to him. 4. And his answer only made her decision to be firm. Emir, you are free, I'll make sure of that. He answered. Words may be cheap, but her heart and soul made her believe him, as she felt that there wasn't a trace of a lie in it. She would be free as long as she follows this person. Emir wouldn't be a slave ever again, so she decided to follow him. Hito didn't know what he was doing. He did his best to make her feel better, although he was most honest with his words. Also, what does she mean that she wanted to be free? So, Emir, mind asking me why those people are chasing you? As soon as he mentioned them, he could see Emir tensing up. However, despite her obvious discomfort, she started explaining her situation to him while shaking like a puppy that was forced to take a shower. It took a few hours for her to finish her life story, and he never felt too sad for someone and never felt too angry with those Eldian. Now that he got the full story, there's one thing he understood: as long as the Eldian tribe existed, Emir would never be truly free. As long as those people exist, she would always be a slave to them. And he wouldn't allow that. He gave this girl his words, and he is willing to follow them, even if it means staining his hands with blood. 11. Hito took a deep breath to calm himself down because if he didn't do this he might not stop himself from rushing toward the enemy's base. From what he knows, the people here are pretty much the same as in his world, no powers, only sword and bow. This world is basically in the medieval period, meaning his chances of dying are significantly low. 2. Thank you for telling me that. He smiled at her, this time with more tenderness. He pitied this girl's life. She doesn't deserve it, nor do her people. Honestly, killing her for freeing the pigs? 3. Those bastards, what if he does the same to them? Definitely tempting, but for now he had to take care of Emir. She was part of his protection now. You're hungry, right? Let me prepare the food I caught. He showed her the deer he caught. Thanks to his reinforcement and structural analysis, it made it a whole lot easier to hunt. See, can I help? Emir hesitatingly asked. If you want to, sure, but do you know how to dissect a deer? Then he saw her nod. Alright then, you can dissect the deer while I make a fire. Before leaving her, he gave her a sharp-looking stone. She stared at him in confusion. Oh, that's what you're going to use in dissecting the deer. I know you're skeptical about it, but trust me, it's very sharp. Try it. He urges her to try and cut the deer. Despite her confusion, she decided to do what he said, and unbelievably, the sharp rock managed to cut the leg of the deer without resistance. It's like using a knife to a piece of butter. The surprise on Emir's face was evident. She obviously didn't expect the rock to be that sharp. Well, she's right. However, due to him adding reinforcement to the rock, it became the sharpest rock in the world. A weapon that could cut a man without resistance. 3. Anyway, I'll be right back. I'll gather some firewood. Hito then left Emir, who was still stunned while looking at the rock. In her mind, this rock must have been divine. 6. The slave 3. Hito finished gathering firewood, and now he was making fire using wood and dry leaves. Thank God for those camping in schools. If he didn't participate, he wouldn't have learned how to make fire using primitive objects. 3. It didn't take him a minute to create a smoke. He started blowing the dry leaf and the smoke eventually became a fire. He smiled at his work, then quickly covered the leaf with other dry leaves. Now that the fire is big enough, it's time for him to add the firewood. He placed them carefully because he didn't want to repeat the process of creating another fire. After he finished preparing the fire, he decided to check on Emir a few feet ahead. Hito saw her almost done with dissecting the deer's meat. From what he could see, she's too focused to notice his presence. Normally he wouldn't interrupt her, but he just had to let her know that he's done with making fire. Emir. His word made her flinch hard and accidentally wounded her left hand with the reinforced rock. Ouch. Emir moaned in pain. 1. Hito quickly kneeled down to her size and asked worriedly. Sorry, I didn't mean to startle you. He gently took her left hand. It was bleeding so much that her hand was almost no longer visible due to the blood covering it. A girl from her age should have cried already, but she didn't. She only looked a bit pained and uncomfortable at the wound. Hito assumed that because she's so used to pain, she thought of this kind of wound as no big deal at all. And it made him feel frustrated because a girl like her shouldn't act like this was a normal thing. He can feel it. She experienced worse, and a wound like this wasn't a big deal for someone like it. If only he... No, it was already too late to think of a what-if scenario. He should just be grateful that he managed to meet her alive. We should cover it with dash. His sentence was cut midway as he noticed that Emir's blood was smoking, like literally smoking. And little by little, the blood disappeared from her left hand, along with the wound that she received from the reinforced rock. Her left hand looks perfect, like no wound ever appeared a while ago. There wasn't even a single scratch. Hito was stunned for a moment but quickly recovered as he experienced unexpected surprises. Emir, what was that? He controlled the tone of his voice, as he didn't want to pressure her with his demands. He said it as gently and harmless as possible. Emir snapped out of her musing and looked shocked at the mysterious regeneration that her hand did. I don't know. He could hear her disbelief. He could feel her disbelief. So it's safe to assume that she also had no idea what was happening to her. She was scared of the changes in her body. That's a pretty normal reaction, so he doesn't find it surprising as he was experiencing the same thing a few days ago. I see. He muttered lowly at himself. However, Emir seemed to hear that and misunderstood his reaction. Please? Believe me, I don't know. Emir looks scared and frustrated. Whoa, I didn't mean anything by that. Calm down, Emir, I believe you. Hito couldn't help but scratch the back of his head. He should really be careful of how he acts around her, as she's a very keen girl. Really? Yes, so please calm down, okay? Emir sighs in relief at his confirmation. He really wanted to say that she's overreacting, but he couldn't, because of her experiences. That's why she acts like that. Now that she's calming down, he started thinking about the changes that were happening to her. He should have already expected this a while ago. After all, Emir was injured and wounded before, but she regenerated. But exactly how was she now capable of it? He tried to think hard about the cause, but he couldn't think of any, and he became a bit frustrated. Hito knew that it was there, but he couldn't point his fingers at it as he couldn't find the missing puzzle. Honestly, strange things happened when he found that huge tree. The tree. Of course, it's the weird tree with a chasm filled with water beneath its root. It was the only strange thing that he noticed after arriving in this world. He knew something was wrong with that tree, but to be proven right is another thing. After they fell from the chasm, it's safe to assume that they were both unconscious when it happened. Only then, after they woke up, the tree was missing, which is impossible. Something happened to it. If his guess was right, then. Hito stared at his arm and took a deep breath. He took a twig that he found in the ground and reinforced it. Then, without a warning, he stabbed his left arm with it, making Emir flinch at his unexpected action. However, a few seconds later, as he expected, his arm started regenerating the same way as Emir. 2. Emir was stunned at the sudden development. She stared at him with wide eyes. Then he looked back at her and said, "It looks like we're the same." He gave her a small smile, and for some reason, it made Emir happy. He could feel her happiness. Emir's face started turning red. Then he was quick to assume that it's something. "Emir, are you okay? You're not sick, aren't you?" Yeah, no, I think. This was the first time she raised her voice. "Wait, let me check." Hito quickly pressed her forehead with his, making Emir turn redder at this skin-to-skin action. After checking whether she's sick or not, Emir almost passed out, but Hito remained oblivious and thought of her sickness as unnatural. He declared that it wasn't sickness because her temperature wasn't hot. 1. Anyway, let's worry about our newfound ability later. For now, let's fill our stomachs with food. As he said that, Emir's stomach growled like a beast. "Well, it looks like you're hungry. Let's not wait any longer. A full stomach is important." Hito spoke with convention. 2. Emir doesn't know why, but she found it amusing. She giggles a bit, which surprised her more than anything, because she couldn't remember the last time she actually laughed. Strange, she's actually smiling. When she thought that she was no longer capable of it, she was proven wrong once more. Smiling like this without worrying wasn't actually bad. If possible, she'd like to keep it this way. But she knew it was impossible. As long as those people exist, she could never find peace as the Eldian tribe walks in this world. 4. Hito started cooking the meat, while Emir was watching. Her curious expression made her look adorable in his eyes. He can't help but, it's like a child discovering something new. She was looking at him rolling the stick that he used to pierce the deer meat. Too bad though, there wasn't any salt, so he had no choice but to use an alternative means. Thankfully he found some cooking ingredients around the forest. Like pepper, chili, a weird ass like onion but still onion regardless, he checked, and a few more. Honestly, he can't believe his luck in finding them. However, he wouldn't question it, like definitely, or else they'd eat a lump of tasteless deer meat. After a few minutes of roasting the meat, a pleasant aroma assaulted both of their noses. It smelled delicious, though Hito was used to this overpowering smell. Emir wasn't. As a slave she hadn't experienced smelling this pleasant aroma. It smelled so delicious that her stomach growled more loudly than before. Not to mention the drool on her lips. She didn't notice it, nor she intended to stop even if she did. And finally, the meat was finally cooked. "It's finally done. Here." He gave the other stick filled with meat to Emir. The meat in the stick was at least a few kilos in weight, and he just gave it to her without hesitation. Emir was stunned. She couldn't believe it. He just gave her some valuable meat without batting an eye. "Is this all for me?" Emir asked in disbelief. "Of course, why would I give it to you then? Anyway, if you need more just tell me, there's still a lot of deer meat left." He answered her. Oh, she never had someone this nice to her. After hesitating a bit, she started chewing the meat in her hand. It was delicious, probably the most delicious that she ever ate in her entire life. Emir couldn't stop her tears from falling out. However, she didn't stop eating. Before she asked herself, why was she emotional in front of him, but now she had her answer. It's because with his presence she felt safe. That's why all of the bottled emotions were leaking now that she's at a safe place, because it's okay to cry. No judgment would befall her if she did. Hito was silently looking at her while he's eating his portion of meat, and he thought, is my meat that delicious for her to cry like this? I never thought I was this good. 14. A/N. What an idiot. 3. Adoption. It was already nighttime. Hito stared at the moon above him, and looking at it, made him realize that this may not be another world but a parallel world instead. A different world should have a different type of solar system, but this world is exactly like his, with one moon and one Sunday one. He wasn't sure if they were lucky that there was a full moon or not, because with this brightness they are visible to anyone. As much as he didn't want to think about it, he couldn't. He wasn't normally an overly cautious person, but with their situation, it's hard not to. Those Eldian hunters that were chasing Emir might be near looking for them, so he wouldn't let himself fall asleep. Then his gaze shifts toward Emir, who was sleeping beneath the tree. He was surprised that she could sleep peacefully knowing that someone out there is looking to hunt her. Maybe it's because she's full. She managed to fall asleep. However, little did he realize that it's because of him. She managed to fall asleep because she feels secure around her. Her survival instinct was telling her that she's safe as long as she's with him. But he didn't know that. Looking at the bright full moon once more, it was beautiful, he had to admit, as he never saw the moon this close. Were they on some sort of mountain? Because he never felt this close to the moon. Without realizing it, Hito slowly closed his eyes and eventually fell asleep. His eyes opened and he saw a familiar ceiling above him. It didn't take him more than a few seconds to realize that he was back in his own reality. Hito stood up from his bed, gathering his thoughts. What happened? I fell asleep and I woke up in my world. He was confused for a moment before realizing something important. 1. So every time he sleeps he goes back and forth between worlds? If that's the case, then, do both his and Emir's world have the same time zone? No, of course not. It's morning here and night there. He couldn't help but scratch his head. He really didn't want to think more about it. Either way, he'll know after he sleeps at night whether he'll go back to Emir's world or the dreamscape. If it's the latter, he'd be disappointed because he hadn't finished helping her. She wasn't truly free yet, and he is worried about what will happen to her while he wasn't there. So he hoped that it's the former. When he goes back to sleep he'll wake up in Emir's world. After he finished taking a bath and wearing his uniform, he went directly down to the dining room, where Hitomi was already placing the breakfast she cooked for the family. She saw him and smiled. Morning, Unai-chan, you're the first to arrive. Yeah, I can see that. He replied while rolling his eyes. He wasn't blind, he could see that it was just him and her. A while later, his mother and father arrived at the dining room along with Lumen, who smiled sheepishly after seeing him. Okay. Women were really strange creatures. Yesterday she was giving him a cold shoulder, but now, she's smiling at him. 1. He'd never understand them, nor he'll ever try to. Complicated things give him a headache, but either way, he was glad that she's now in a better mood. Though he'd like to know why she was acting like an ice queen yesterday, he knows that it's pointless because he'll never know. Then his mother Jean suddenly said, Lu-chan, I've finished everything that you needed to go to school. All you need to do is sign this paper and everything will be done. 1. Hito stared at his mother in surprise and thought, doesn't things like that take months or at least weeks to finish? And she just announced yesterday her intention to adopt Lumen and now she's done. Is his mother secretly a powerful politician or something? 2. Now that he thought about it, what was his mother's job anyway? She did say that she worked for the government, but he doesn't know exactly what kind of government work she does. 5. Suddenly he felt like he saw his mother for the first time. Just who really is his mother really? There's no way an ordinary housewife working in the government could pull something such as making a legal identity on a person who doesn't even exist in one day. Plus with adoption papers, don't things like that go to court for legalization or something? Lu-chan? If you're worried about signing on something shady, don't worry, I swear on my family's name. It's not. You can even read the adoption papers yourself. If it's not enough, then I'll even call a lawyer right now. Jean said it all with an excited smile on her face. If there's one thing that he knew about his mother, is that wherever she's excited she is incapable of lying, so whatever words she's letting out is no doubt the truth. And no, I mean mom, I'm just surprised you created something like this so fast. Is this normal? Lumen asked doubtfully. Yes. Jean answered without hesitation. No, it's not. But Lumen didn't know that, so she just nodded. By the way, before I forget, here's your legal ID with the necessary papers. With this you're a legal Japanese citizen. Okay, now that's bullshit. How the hell did his mother manage that? It's hard for a foreigner to get a Japanese card these days, and not only his mother did it in one day, she even did it to a foreigner who doesn't have an existing record. He now knows for sure that his mother isn't normal. Whatever she is, she has an amazing connection in Japan. He shifts his gaze toward his father and he continues to sip the coffee in his hand like it was normal. You too? How could he act like it's nothing special? Then his head turned toward his sister. She looked more excited than anything. Come on, Imuto, you're smarter than this. How come you didn't notice? He knows that she's excited to have another sister, but isn't too oblivious to what is happening. Also, you can pick any school you want to go to. If you want, I can even enroll you in Shuchin Academy next week, Jean said casually. 3. What? Hito shifted his attention toward his mother so fast that his neck made a cracking sound, but he didn't care. Did she just say Shuchin Academy? The school for those rich heiresses and heirs? This time, even his father and Hitomi were looking at his mother, especially Hitomi, who was in disbelief. I'm joking, of course. Jean smiled. Oh, you got us, Mom. Hitomi started shaking her head. It might have fooled her, but it certainly did not convince him. She was serious about Lumen attending Shuchin Academy, and he could feel his mother's confidence in that. Lumen didn't know about Shuchin Academy, that's why she looked confused about their reactions. I'd like to go to the same school as Hito-san if it's okay, Mom. Lumen cringed a bit as she mentioned the word mom. It feels strange for her to say that word to a person. Not to mention she's old enough to be Jean's ancestor. But still, it was a nice experience for her to have a mother, or a father for that matter. As far as she knew, she was born out of nothing, and one day she and her twin brother just popped out of existence. They really didn't have any parents. 2. Except for the universe that birthed their existence. Oh, if that's what you want my dear daughter, I'll arrange it. You can start going to school next Monday. Jean cooed. As Lumen called her mom, she always wanted another child, and her wish was granted in the form of Lumen. Isn't that just a few days from now? Hito thought it was Thursday today, so 3 days from now, Lumen is going to transfer to his school. 1. Although he hadn't forgotten about the suspicious background of his mother, it would be a lie to say that he wasn't excited to go to the same school with Lumen. Imagine going home together. He couldn't help but blush a little thinking about that. It wouldn't be a fantasy anymore. Wait a minute, I just realized something. I don't really have a male friend, do I? He thought. He only had female friends, but no male friends. 5. From an outsider's perspective, it's strange. People might think he's gay or something, but he doesn't really care what others think about him, because he's straight. 4. However, he does need male friends. 1 or 2 would be ideal because with a male friend he can talk about things that he couldn't with girls. 1. A man's topic isn't something a woman should know. 1. That's the sacred rule of men. 7. Hito saw Lumen signing the adoption paper, and she's now officially a Tadano. Honestly, he doesn't know why, but thinking of her full name made him blush. Lumen Tadano. It's like they're married or something. 3.